Hi, and welcome to Doll Belly Knits, a show that discusses reusing, repurposing, and basically making do with what you have on hand to create beautiful and practical knitwear and other crafty objects. My name is Annabelle, and you can find me here on YouTube as Doll Belly Knits, and you can also find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Doll Belly. So, for weeks, I've been talking about the socks that I am making for my mom's birthday, which incidentally has passed, but I'm getting ready to go and see her in 2 days. So super excited, and it means I super need to get these done. And I am still working on them, although I am almost finished. I will show them to you. Keeping it in my clotted cream box. These are just a vanilla pattern that I made up on my own. I do them 2 at a time on 2 small circular needles, and I start toe up. I use wrap and turns for the both the toes and the heel is basically how I do it. And then this time for the cuff, and this is what's taken me so long, but here I am. So this is Premier brand wool-free sock yarn in the colorway Utah, and I'm using a 3.75 millimeter needle, which I know is rather large for sock knitting, but if you're interested on how I came to using them and how they ended up being my go-to method of making socks, you can go back to previous episodes and take a look at my explanation there. I apologize. It is a beautiful day, so we have the windows open, and that is my lovely little Chihuahua, Frankie, barking at the birds that are in the yard. So hopefully the bird will fly away and she will stop. Frankie, stop. So this time, instead of just doing 1x1 ribbing, which is normally what I do because I like the way that comes out, it makes it tighter in the cuff. I decided to do a twisted rib 1x1. I'm not sure you can see that, but that takes longer. And it's taken me some more time than I anticipated, but I'm actually almost done. I usually knit the cuff to about 6 inches, so that's about 4, so I only have about 2 more inches to go, and I should be able to finish them off and be able to pack them in my bag and finally be done with these. So that's exciting that I'm almost done with that. Put them away. As soon as I'm done with these, I wanted to get back to a work in progress that I started a little while ago. I don't think I actually showed it on any of the episodes so far, and it is a pattern called Venomous Tentacle. Yes, Venomous Tentacle by Jennifer Dassau, Dassau, and I will put all this information in show notes. Any of the people, places, patterns, needles, notions, things that I mention, I always include them in the show notes at the bottom of the screen. Usually also I include video and pictures, not video but pictures in the video, so that you can get a better look at some of the things that I'm talking about. So my Venomous Tentacle is this so far. So it's worked sideways, and it's my little gnome stitch keeper. Ooh, that looks funky. You can see my other scarf through the holes. So it also it calls for some beading on this shawl as well. So basically, I am using a 3.25 millimeter red lace Chihuahua. And actually, this needle is 2 needles down in size than what the pattern calls for. And I did it that way because I really wanted to use this needle. I do love the Chihuahua products. And this is a newer purchase for me. I had purchased it to complete the string band cowl that I made for my husband last Christmas, which you can pop over to episode 1, I think that might be in, and take a look at that. Or you can look on my Ravelry page. But I love the way it knits. It's nice and smooth. The cable actually is a cable, but you're not going to be able to see it here on this camera. But any of you guys who have Chihuahua, it's actually a metal twisted cable that is the center. So it's not as flexible. It's probably not something that you would want to use for magic loop purposes, but when you get to have a larger project, and this is going to grow bigger, wider, it helps support the weight of what you're working on. So I did do a swatch, and I guess I'm just a loose knitter, but the swatch came out correct, even though I'm using a needle that is 2 sizes down than what the pattern calls for. So I guess it was just fate that I am to use this particular needle for this project. So 3.25 millimeter, and the yarn that I'm using is Ripples Craft Hand Dyed Reliable Sock Yarn, and it's in the I don't know how to pronounce that, Assynt Storm. It's number 552. It's 75% wool, 25% nylon. It is something that I picked up at a wool festival that I went to that I will talk about actually at the end of the show. So far, it's been interesting. This is the first time that I'm working with beads and beading something, and I happen to be using the method where you take a crochet hook and pull the bead up onto the wool as you're going along versus stringing all the beads on ahead of time. And it actually worked out really well because I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do since I've never done this before. But there's this great little shop in the town that we live in, and it's actually called Bead. So you go into the store and there's just like tables of beads in little boxes. And I basically went down there without really having an idea of what I wanted to do, or even if I was actually going to put beads on the project. If you look in Ravelry and you look at people's projects for this pattern, there are plenty of people who didn't even bother putting beads on. It seems like the beads that the pattern calls for are small, 6/00 seed beads. So that's pretty small, and it seems to get lost in the pattern work in the wool. But anyway, I just went down there and I thought, well, I'll just take a look and see what they have. And I took the yarn with me so I could, maybe match something up. And that's kind of what happened. I went down there and I found beads that I liked, but I didn't get what the pattern, because the pattern called for like 120 beads, so I wasn't going to do that. But I picked up some really cool ones. I'll try to show you. This one in particular I thought was really neat. So it's a little elephant, and it kind of has a Indian flair to it. It's like the elephant has I am not doing a good job of this. The elephant has like a blanket on it. I'll take a picture of it and insert it in the video. So I really liked that, and I got other beads that kind of match that vibe. In addition, I got some beads that have jewels in them, so I know you can see that a little bit. Rounded jewels. So yeah, I'm liking it so far. I can basically put a bead wherever I feel like it, willy-nilly, and I didn't spend a super ton of money, but I got some that are larger than what the pattern called for, so they do stick out and you can see them a lot easier than maybe the smaller ones. So I'm kind of enjoying that so far, and this will be the first shawl, I think, or it's a scarf really, that I own that I did in a red colorway, which is odd because red's my favorite color. Somehow I end up with purples and blues and blacks, but so I'm pretty excited about actually having something red when red is really my favorite color. So I will, once I'm finished Mom's socks, I will be able to get back to this, and I'm very excited about that. I'm gonna put it away in my soap sud sack. Again, I just use what I got on hand, what I got handy, and I use soap suds in my laundry, and I eat ice cream. So I always have those things on hand. Next thing, the next work in progress that is still a work in progress is the recovered wool from the sweater. If you haven't seen any of my previous episodes, please do go back and look at episode 3 and 4 maybe. I discovered, that's not the right word, but basically discovered the idea of going and finding a object that had already been used, whether it's a sweater or some other woolly object, and taking it apart to reclaim the wool and repurpose it for other things. So I investigated this, and I was lucky enough to find a hand knitted sweater that had been donated to a charity shop. I was able to pick that up for a nominal fee, and I recovered 250 grams of DK weight wool. So now I have this wool that I'm trying to figure out what it is that I want to do with. So I'm having a little go at doing some designing. And the first thing that I did was I did knit swatches to confirm what weight the wool was, and to also see, is this something that I'm going to want to be in stockinette stitch, or garter stitch. I definitely like the way it looks in garter stitch versus stockinette stitch, but that has definitely yet to be determined, because I found a stitching book from 1971, all in black and white, all the stitches. So I've been looking at that too. What I have done so far though is I knitted up a long, I think it was about 100 stitches that I cast on, and then I just knit in garter stitch for only like 2 or 3 rows and then cast that off. So I basically had a long strip to work with. And for some reason I got it in my head that I would weave this into some type of knot, a Celtic knot. So I did that. It's supposed to be a Celtic heart. And I'll put a picture in here so you can see it better. And then I thought, and then I can attach this, and this could be the focal centerpiece of what I'm trying to design, which I am thinking some kind of accessory, maybe a cowl scarf type thing. I don't know, we'll see. This is really totally organic and completely not in my comfort zone, which appears to be the theme for 2018. Trying new things in sock knitting, trying different size needles, and also trying my hand at designing. And never recovered wool in my life, so I guess that's a good thing, because I do believe you're a student all the time. No matter how old you get, you still have stuff you can learn. Anyway, so I did this, and there's a couple problems with this. I think the primary problem is that because it's black and because it's wool, you can't really tell. You can't really tell what the shape is. And then over time, it's probably just going to smush together, and then it'll just be a blob. in the center of whatever it is that I'm doing. So I abandoned that idea. But in the meantime, in the last episode, I talked about the really old knitting book that I did pick up, or I found in my house. Didn't know I even had it, but that I had wanted to go to the library and grab a couple books, and I did. And I have two of them here, and I'll show them to you, but I'll also put in pictures so you can read it a lot better. This is Knitting on the Edge by Nicky, Epstein. So this is all edging items, and this is a gorgeous book. It's heavy, which could be a good thing. It's certainly not something you're going to put inside your little knitting bag and carry with you. This requires like a tabletop to look at, but the photos are gorgeous. Oh my goodness, Frankie, leave the bird alone. Really, come here, come on. Come here. Come on. Let's show them the monster. Look at that. Look at her. Look at her. How can you be scared of that? They're not scared of you, Frankie. They're laughing at you. They're laughing with you, my love. Yeah, so the pictures are gorgeous inside this, and I'm looking into that. Because I am feeling garter stitch maybe just the mainstay of what happens, and maybe there'll be an interesting edging or some other type of interesting feature. So again, I got this one at the library, Knitting on the Edge, and then there was the companion, Knitting Over the Edge, also by Nicky, Epstein. So this is more about cords and appliques and other things like that. Again, this looks like the same. Boy, that glare. This looks like the same, I was going to say publisher. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, same publisher, same format in the book. So I am excited to take a look at that and see what I can possibly come up with. And definitely, designing is as hard as I thought it was going to be. Seriously. Hold on. Sorry about that. Dog. Yeah, so I was talking about designing and design work, and it is proving so far to be as hard as I thought it was going to be. However, I'm not deterred, and I know it's just because it's something new for me that it's given me a little bit of struggle. And again, I said it was organic in nature, and that's just not necessarily how I like to roll. I like a checklist. I like, this is what we're going to do, and this is what needs to be done. As my husband says, I'm an excellent tactician. Give me a job and I will get it done. If I have to figure out how to do the job or what the job is, things become a little murky. But I am having fun. It's great seeing these books and the pictures, and just kind of letting your imagination run wild. And like I said in the previous episodes, I really love the idea that this sweater had a whole nother life before it came to me, and now I'm repurposing and reusing it and giving it a different life. And having said that, I do have the next object that I plan on reclaiming the wool from. And this will be interesting and completely different than the sweater, because it is, it's a hat. It's a sparkly hat. So I picked this up at another charity shop in town. And it is a little cloche hat with a nice little applique flower. And again, I think this is another hand knit piece, because there's absolutely no tag inside to indicate that it was machine made or that it comes from a company. And you can see here, this is a sewn up seam. So whoever knitted this, they knitted it flat and then they sewed up the seam. It is, though, I'm thinking it might have been meant for a child, because that's not quite right, is it? And the flowers all the way up top there. So I'm thinking this was for a little kid, which means there's probably not a lot of wool here to reclaim, which is probably a good thing, because I'm thinking these little sparkly bits are probably going to be a problem. And I'm not sure that this is wool. It could be all acrylic, because there's no tag to tell me what it is, but I just really liked it. I saw it, I really liked it. I don't know. Like I said, I think I'm getting more out of the idea that this was somebody else's and it has a story to tell, and I want to try to tell the story. So I think that's really the satisfaction and the drive for doing this, is where I'm coming from. But I am learning a lot in the process as well, so that's enjoyable too. Right. Some things that I've actually finished, because I've shown you a lot of works in progress. Some items that I've actually finished, and they're not knit items. So again, I do other things, although knitting is a love. But again, I try to make do with what I have on hand, and it's almost like a challenge for me to make something work. I saw Michael McIntyre. I really enjoy him as a comedian. And I saw him do this skit about how kids love to just throw things on you before you're walking out the door in the morning for school. Like, it's Roman day at school, Dad. And like, he's going to automatically pull out a toga or a chariot from somewhere. So, I similarly got something thrown at me. The children were going to a Victorian museum. So, yes, they wanted the kids come dressed up in Victorian. I don't happen to have a scullery maid outfit hanging around. If I did, that would be a different show. But, so I had to make this, something. And of course, you can just, put an apron on the kid, make them wear dark clothing, that kind of thing. But one of the items that sticks out for Victorian wear are the mop caps. I've seen it mop cap, M-O-P. I've also seen it mob cap, M-O-B. I think, either way, you will come to the conclusion of having to make one of these little white hats. But I basically, did some YouTube and thought about it a little bit, and was able to sew on the sewing machine. I did not use math, though, and that's that's where the ingenuity of this comes in, because basically it's a circle that you then trim the edge of the circle, and then you run a piece of string through in a, I don't even know what the stitch is called. That's how little sewing that I do. Like a running stitch, you just go all the way around so that then you can gather it up and then pull it tight on the child's head. Right. Okay, so how are you going to make a circle? How are you going to make a perfect circle? I would think the easiest thing to do would to be fold a piece of material in half and then draw a half circle and then cut it out. Unfortunately, a lot of times you end up with something that looks like an egg instead of a circle. So what I did was I used the know-how of cake baking. If you look inside Pillsbury's Complete Book of Cake Baking, and probably any book that has cookbook that focuses on baking, they show you a way to make a circle out of a square piece of wax paper so that then you can line the bottom of your cake pan. And that's basically the same premise that I used, that I had a rectangular piece of, or a square piece of fabric that I was working with, and I fold it in half and fold it in half, and then you do corner to corner and then corner to corner, so you end up having like this little triangle piece at the end. Although with the piece of fabric, it was larger. And you cut off the top and round it, and then boom, circle. So I was pretty proud of myself, as you can tell. Probably more proud than I really need to be, but I don't sew. I really don't sew. And on top of it, the sewing machine I have is broken. I had to jury rig it to make it work. Um, it's an old machine. My mom got it for me when I moved out, just so I would have a sewing machine in case I ever needed to sew something. And I have used it over the years, basic curtains, flat things, that kind of stuff. But somehow in our more recent move, the plastic piece on the top of the machine that is meant to hold the spool of thread broke off. So the past couple times I was using the sewing machine, I was having problems where a lot of string kept getting caught inside the bobbin, inside the machine. And I knew that there was something going on, that like too much thread is being fed inside the bobbin casing. And then it was getting all jammed up. And I realized it's because the spool of thread at the top is kind of just flying around willy-nilly. So I took a really large binder clip and I put it up on top of the machine, and then I threaded the thread through the clip and then into the machine. And the clip was a large one. I'll put a picture in, so that it also kind of held the spool back. So that's another reason that I'm super proud of this finished object, because I actually had to like mechanically engineer something in order to do this wonderful last minute voluntary / mandatory project for my child's school trip. So yes, mop cap and cakes, they go together in some strange universe, doll belly knit universe. The other finished object that I wanted to share with you is what I call my little tomato sack. So, I'm not gonna, I kind of like tomatoes, but not really. I will eat them if they're available. But if I choose tomatoes, I like the little grape ones, little cherry tomato ones. So I was having this problem where I would get, like a pint of them, and I would dump them into the fruit bowl with the rest of the fruit, but they would fall down into the bottom and I would lose track of them, and then they would either go bad, or worse than that, they would start to mold because they were stuck down there and they were up against an apple, which just makes everything ripen way too fast. And I was basically losing my cherry tomatoes, and would have been easier just throwing money out the window. So in order to fix that and kind of put the tomatoes in a separate place, but still give them the ability to breathe so that they wouldn't go bad as quickly, I made a little sack. This is crocheted. And I got the idea from those reusable crochet shopping bags. I mean, that's basically what it is. So you can see I just did a circle for the bottom, and then went up and started doing the spider web pattern around until I was happy with the size, and then did an edging, and I made a little handle as well. Because what I do is I will wash up the tomatoes, put them inside, and then I will hang it over something. Currently it's hanging over a pasta jar in my kitchen, so it keeps them in sight and in my mind, and it also gives them the ability to breathe. And the cotton bag helps, suck up moisture or anything like that. So a couple times, I forgot about them anyway, or I just wasn't eating them, and I found like maybe one tomato at the bottom, not so awesome. So the cotton helped with that too, helped it from being a super huge mess. And I do think because there was quite a bit of aeration, it saved the rest of the tomatoes. So again, that's another little practical thing that I made at home to solve a problem that I had. Kind of like the reusable snack bags. If you haven't seen them, they're in episode 2. So yeah, pretty proud of that. and it probably took 15 minutes, and it has saved so many tomato lives. Okay, so looking at my notes, right? Works in progress, finished objects, and now it's time for magical memories. I try to talk each episode about things that I'm doing, memories I'm creating, just as because again, I like to try to make memories versus acquire stuff. So, the last time I had talked about Crochet Club. It's the club that I teach at my child's school. And I asked for ideas and recommendations of individual or smaller projects that I could do with the kids. The first group that I worked with, we ended up making a group project, and that's on display in the school. So it's great. The kids can come in and they can, point out I did that, and that's my piece of the puzzle. But I wanted things that they could take home. And I appreciate all the responses that I got. And what I ended up doing was taking various size pots, yogurt pots, soup pots, things like that. And the kids ended up covering the pots in crochet, whether they were just chaining or whether their pieces were bigger. And they took them home to use them for either pencils or pens or hair bobbles. So that was really great that they all had something that they could take with them, which was what I was striving for. So thanks for your help and thanks for your suggestions. We will see how Crochet Club goes here on out. We're on a school break, so we'll see what happens after the break is over and we go back. But yeah, as part of Crochet Club, I wanted to mention I can be found on Ravelry, and I would love if you would come over and say hello and send me a message. But one thing I haven't done yet is I haven't started a group for the show, which a lot of people seem to do. So if that's something that you are interested in and you use Ravelry a lot, and that is like one of your main social sites that you use, leave me a comment below and let me know that you'd like me to start a group so that we can get to know each other better and chat over there on Ravelry. And then the other magical memory, which is 6 months old now, but that means it's only 6 months away until it happens again, is Yarndale, which is a wool festival here in North Yorkshire in England. I went with my friend Mel. She is Funky40 podcast. You can find her on YouTube and Instagram. We went to this wool fest because it's close to us. It was easy for us to get to. But I think one of the things that was really great about this particular festival was that it was on a smaller scale. Been to larger shows, knitting and stitching show, and those are inside really large facilities, and that can actually be really overwhelming. So many vendors, so many people, so many things. So this was a lot more low key, and it was particularly interesting because it was held in the animal market in Skipton. So every vendor was kind of like in the little animal stall. They had set up their shop. So that also added to the feel of it being smaller because you kind of went into like a little cubby and then you could look at stuff and then you had to come out of the cubby and continue down the aisle. So that was another thing that was really interesting about that. And there were actually sheep there. Some people brought their sheep from which they gathered the wool to spin. So there was yarn bombing. It really was really fantastic. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I will put lots of pictures in. If you are close by, if you're able to, it's coming up again in September of this year. I definitely recommend. It's a festival that you should go to, if that's something that you can do. Even if you go and you don't buy anything, it's definitely a different experience from maybe some of the larger festivals. More cozy, more intimate. So that added to the specialness of the day, and the magicalness of the memory. It's getting crazy with the words. Yeah, so those are my magical memories for this show. I certainly hope that you guys are out there making some magical memories of your own. And I think this is going to be it for me for this show, but please come back again for next time. And until then, happy knitting.